The red sun of New Kansas hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the dusty road that stretched between the mountains. Lisa Harper gripped the steering wheel of her massive freight truck as she drove through the desert landscape. To anyone watching, she looked like just another trucker trying to make a living on the frontier. Her clothes were simple, worn jeans, a faded t-shirt, and old boots. Her brown hair was tied back in a ponytail, and she had the tired look of someone who had been driving for hours. But Lisa Harper was not just a truck driver. Her real job was far more dangerous and important than anyone on this planet could imagine. 3 years ago, the Terran Defense Council had given her a new identity. They told her to forget her past as Captain Lisa Harper, one of the most deadly fighters in human space. She was supposed to be Sandra Bullock, a simple freight hauler who moved cargo between the human settlements and alien trading posts. The name came from old Earth movies that aliens seemed to love for some strange reason. The planet knew. Kansas had been designed to fool aliens into thinking humans were weak and simple. The towns looked like something from old Earth history books, with wooden buildings and dirt roads. Gas stations sold fuel the old-fashioned way, and people dressed like cowboys and farmers. Everything was meant to make visiting aliens think that humans were still primitive and harmless. Lisa's truck was part of the act, too. It looked like an ancient Earth vehicle. But hidden inside were weapons and communication systems that could contact any human military ship within 50 light years. The cargo she carried was never what it seemed to be either. Today's load was marked as farming equipment. The crates actually contained advanced sensor arrays that would help human forces track alien military movements as she drove. Lisa thought about her partner, Jake Morrison.
Like her, he was a
trained operative, working under a fake name. The aliens knew him as Keanu Reeves, a quiet mechanic who fixed broken vehicles at the gas stations and trading posts. Jake had been on New Kansas for 2 years longer than Lisa, and he had built a perfect cover identity. Everyone thought he was just a simple man who was good with machines. The truth was that Jake Morrison had killed more enemy aliens than almost any other human soldier. His mechanical skills were real, but they came from years of maintaining the most advanced military equipment in human space. He could take apart an alien weapon system and put it back together blindfolded. More importantly, he could build bombs and other weapons from ordinary parts that no alien would ever suspect. Lisa and Jake had been partners for 5 years before coming to New Kansas. They had fought together in the Centauri campaign, where human forces had pushed back 3 different alien invasion fleets. They had also worked together to destroy the Krell weapons facility on Titan, a mission that saved millions of human lives. Their teamwork was so good that other soldiers said they could read each other's minds in battle, but now they had to pretend to be strangers. Lisa would nod to Jake when she saw him at gas stations, and he would nod back, but they never spoke more than a few words. It was important that no one, especially the aliens, realized that 2 of humanity's best fighters were working together on the same planet. The reason they were here was simple but deadly serious. For the past 6 months, alien criminal gangs had been attacking human settlements on the frontier worlds. These were not random attacks. Someone was organizing them, giving them weapons, and telling them exactly where to strike. The attacks always happened when human military forces were busy elsewhere. And the criminals always seemed to know which settlements had the weakest defenses. The worst of these gangs called themselves the Zephyrians. They were not from any planet that humans had ever found. Their skin looked like metal, and they were much taller and stronger than humans. They rode on modified hoverbikes that could fly and were armed with plasma weapons that could burn through most armor. When they attacked a settlement, they took everything valuable and left the buildings burning. 3 weeks ago, a Zephyrian gang had attacked the mining colony on Dry Creek. They had killed 12 people and stolen enough rare metals to buy a small warship. The attack had been planned perfectly. They knew exactly when the Colonial Defense Force would be away on training exercises. They also knew which warehouse contained the most valuable materials. This kind of information could only come from someone with access to human military communications. Somewhere in the colonial government or the defense forces, there was a traitor, working with the alien criminals. Lisa and Jake's job was to find this traitor and stop the attacks before more people died. The plan was for Lisa to drive cargo routes between all the major settlements, using her truck's hidden sensors to gather information about alien movements and communications. Jake would work at gas stations and repair shops, where he could overhear conversations and work on alien vehicles. Together, they would map out the criminal networks and find the source of the leaked information. It was dangerous work that required them to stay in character at all times. If the aliens realized that two human Special Forces operatives were hunting them, they would either run away or try to kill them. Either way, the mission would fail and more innocent people would die. As Lisa's truck crested a hill, she could see Murphy's gas station in the distance. It was one of the places where Jake worked, and she needed to stop there for fuel. The station looked like something from old Earth, with manual fuel pumps and a small building that sold food and supplies. There were usually a few alien travelers there. Since it was on the main route between the human settlements and the alien trading posts, Lisa checked her mirrors and saw dust clouds behind her. Other vehicles were coming up the road, but she could not see them clearly yet. She hoped they were just more truckers or travelers heading to the gas station. But something about the way they moved made her nervous. The dust clouds were too spread out, like vehicles moving in formation rather than just traveling together. She reached under her seat and touched the grip of her hidden plasma pistol. It felt good to know it was there, even though she hoped she would not need it. After 3 years of pretending to be helpless, sometimes she forgot how deadly she really was. But if trouble came looking for her today, it would get a very unpleasant surprise. Lisa pulled her truck into Murphy's gas station and parked next to the fuel pumps. The station looked quiet in the late afternoon heat. Pete Williams, the station owner, waved at her from behind the counter inside the small building. He was a friendly man in his 50s who always had a smile for the truckers who stopped by. Lisa waved back and climbed down from her truck. The fuel pumps were the old manual type that required you to operate them yourself. Lisa had always thought this was a clever touch. Aliens who visited the station assumed that humans were too primitive to have automatic systems. They never suspected that the pumps were actually scanning every vehicle that used them, recording data about alien technology and sending it to human intelligence networks. As Lisa began filling her tank, she heard the rumble of engines in the distance. The dust clouds she had seen in her mirrors were getting closer. She kept pumping fuel, but watched the road carefully. After a few minutes, she could see the vehicles clearly, and her heart began to beat faster. 6 hoverbikes were racing toward the gas station. They moved in perfect formation, staying low to the ground but ready to lift into the air at any moment. Each bike was painted in dark colors, with sharp metal spikes welded to the sides. Plasma cannons were mounted on the front. Energy shields shimmered around the riders. The riders themselves were Zephyrians. Lisa could tell even from a distance because of their size and the way they moved. Each one was at least 7 feet tall, with metallic skin that looked like armor plating. Their faces were hidden behind helmets, but Lisa knew that underneath they looked like reptiles crossed with machines. The lead rider was bigger than the others, with red markings on his armor that showed his rank. Lisa had studied intelligence, reports about Zephyrian gangs, and she was almost certain this was Vex Korath, the leader of the most dangerous criminal group in this sector. If she was right, then the fuel stop she had planned was about to become much more complicated. The hoverbikes roared into the gas station parking area and formed a circle around Lisa's truck. The riders kept their engines running, and the sound was loud and threatening. Lisa continued pumping fuel and tried to look nervous, which was not difficult since 6 heavily armed aliens had just surrounded her. Vex Korath climbed off his bike and walked toward Lisa. He was even bigger up close, nearly 8 feet tall, and covered in natural armor that looked like it could stop most bullets. His helmet had a dark visor that hid his eyes, but Lisa could feel him staring at her. When he spoke, his voice was deep and harsh, with the strange accent that all Zephyrians had. "Human female," Korath said. "Ah, you drive the freight routes between settlements," was not a question. Lisa nodded and tried to look frightened. "Sir," she said in a small voice. "Just trying to make a living, you know." Korath moved closer, and Lisa could smell the metallic scent that came from his skin. "We have been watching you," he said. "Your truck has been seen in many places where our business has been, interrupted. Lisa's mind raced. The Zephyrians had been tracking her movements, which meant they suspected her of interfering with their operations. This was bad news, but she had to stay in character. "I don't know what you mean," she said. "I just deliver cargo where people tell me to." Two of the other Zephyrians climbed off their bikes and moved to stand on either side of Lisa. They were almost as big as their leader, and both carried plasma rifles that could turn a human into ash in seconds. Lisa noticed that Pete Williams had disappeared from behind the counter inside the station. She hoped he was calling for help and not just hiding. "Show me your cargo manifest," Korath demanded, holding out one armored hand. Lisa reached into her pocket and pulled out a data pad that contained fake shipping records. All freight haulers carried these documents to show what they were transporting and where it was going. Korath took the pad and studied it for a long moment. "Mermain. Equipment," he read aloud. "Destined for the settlement at Riverbend." He looked up at Lisa with what might have been amusement. "Humans and their farms. Always trying to grow food in the dirt like primitive creatures." Lisa said nothing, but inside she was calculating distances and angles. The two Zephyrians beside her were standing too close together. She had to fight. She could probably take them both down before they could raise their weapons. But there were still 4 more enemies, including their leader. And they were all armed and dangerous. Korath handed the datapad back to Lisa, but his manner had changed. He was no longer just curious. Now he seemed suspicious and angry. "There have been too many coincidences," he said. "Your truck appears near our operations, and then things go wrong for us. Equipment disappears. Communications are interrupted. Our allies become afraid to work with us." "I swear I don't know anything about that," Lisa said, making her voice shake a little. "I just drive where they tell me to drive. I don't want any trouble." One of the other Zephyrians spoke up in their native language. Lisa understood every word because of the translation device hidden in her ear, but she was careful not to react. The alien was telling Korath that they had intercepted human communications mentioning the female who disrupts our plans. Korath nodded and turned back to Lisa. "My friend Razek thinks you are not as innocent as you pretend," he said. "Thinks you are working with human military forces to spy on us." Lisa tried to look confused and scared. "Military forces? I'm just a truck driver. I've never even seen a soldier except in old movies." But even as she spoke, Lisa knew her cover was starting to fall apart. The Zephyrians had been watching her for weeks, and they had connected her to the problems their criminal organization was having. It was only a matter of time before they decided to take her prisoner or kill her to send a message to other humans. What the aliens did not know was that Jake Morrison was less than 50 yards away, pretending to work on a broken speeder behind the gas station's service building. Lisa could not see him, but she knew he was there because they had arranged to meet at this station. She also knew that he would be listening to every word of this conversation through the surveillance equipment. It's built into his tools. The question was whether Jake would be able to help her, or if she would have to handle 6 dangerous aliens by herself. Either way, Lisa realized that her time as Sandra Bullock, the harmless truck driver, was probably about to end. The only question now was how many Zephyrians would survive to tell the story. Korath was studying her face carefully, looking for any sign that she was lying. Lisa met his gaze and tried to project nothing but fear and confusion. But inside, she was already planning her first 3 moves if the situation turned violent. Old habits died hard, and Captain Lisa Harper had never learned how to surrender. Vex Korath stepped back from Lisa and spoke to his gang in the Zephyrian language. Lisa kept her face blank and frightened, but her hidden translator was feeding every word directly into her ear. What she heard made her blood run cold. "Bane, move around to her other side," Korath ordered. "Razek, keep your weapon ready, but do not let the humans inside the station see it. We do not want to cause a panic until we have what we need." A third Zephyrian, smaller than the others but with scars covering his armor, moved to Lisa's left side. Now she was surrounded by 3 aliens, with 3 more still sitting on their hover bikes with engines running. The formation was professional and careful. These were not just criminals. They were trained fighters who knew how to capture prisoners without alerting nearby witnesses. "We are going to take a look at your cargo," Koroth announced, switching back to human language. "Open the back of your truck." Lisa's heart was pounding, but she tried to keep her voice steady. "I can't do that without permission from my company," she said. "The cargo is sealed until it reaches its destination. It's how freight contracts work." Koroth made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your human contracts mean nothing to us," he said. "Open the truck, or we will open it ourselves." Lisa glanced toward the gas station building, hoping to see Pete Williams or maybe catch sight of Jake. The station seemed empty, but she noticed that one of the service bay doors was slightly open. Jake had to be in there somewhere, but she could not see him. "Listen," Lisa said, trying to buy time. "Even if I wanted to help you, I don't have the codes to open the cargo bay. Those are sent directly to the delivery point. All I can do is drive the truck." This was actually true. The real Sandra Bullock identity would not have access to cargo security codes, but Lisa Harper knew at least 6 different ways to break into her own truck, including voice commands that would open hidden weapon compartments. Razek spoke up in Zephyrian again. "She is stalling," he told his leader. "We should take her back to the ship and make her talk. The cargo can be opened there." Koroth nodded slowly. "Yes, I think you are right." He turned back to Lisa. "You will come with us. We have ways of making humans more cooperative." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. She had read intelligence reports about what happened to humans who were captured by Zephyrian gangs. The lucky ones died quickly. The unlucky ones were kept alive for weeks, while the aliens experimented on them to learn about human weaknesses. "Please," she said, letting real fear creep into her voice. "I'm just a truck driver. I don't know anything important. My company will pay you if you want money." "Your company cannot pay us what we need," Koroth said. "But you can give us information about human military movements, defensive positions, and communication codes. We know you have been gathering this information during your travels." Lisa's mind raced. The aliens knew far more about her activities than she had realized. Someone had been feeding them detailed intelligence about her cover identity and her movements. There was definitely a human traitor working with the Zephyrians, and that person had put both her and Jake in serious danger. Thane moved closer to Lisa's left side, and she could see him reaching for restraints on his belt. These were not ordinary handcuffs. They were energy shackles designed to prevent prisoners from moving or fighting back. Once they were locked around her wrists, she would be helpless. "Wait," Lisa said desperately. "What if I told you about other freight haulers who might know more than me? I hear things at truck stops and driver meetings. Maybe I could help you find better targets." Koroth seemed interested. "What kind of things do you hear?" Lisa was making up the story as she went along, but she needed to keep the aliens talking. While she figured out how to escape, "There's a driver named Bill Carter who hauls military supplies," she said. "And another one, Mary Jenkins, who works directly with Colonial Defense Forces. They would know much more than me." "Interesting," Koroth said. "But we have already identified those humans. They're too well protected to approach safely. However, travel alone on empty roads where no one will notice if you disappear." Behind Koroth, one of the hoverbikes suddenly made a strange noise. The rider looked down at his control panel with confusion. "Commander," he called out, "my bike is showing system errors. The targeting computer is malfunctioning." "A second." Ryder had the same problem. "Mine too," he reported. "All weapon systems are offline." Lisa felt a small surge of hope. Jake had to be doing something to interfere with the aliens' equipment. He was incredibly skilled with electronic systems, and he had probably found a way to disrupt their hoverbikes without being detected. Koroth was becoming impatient. "Fix your machines later," he snapped at his riders. "Thane, put the restraints on the human. Da-da-da-da. We are wasting too much time here." Thane stepped forward with the energy shackles, and Lisa knew she was out of options. She could not let herself be captured, no matter what it meant for her cover identity. The information in her head was too valuable, and the torture methods used by Zephyrians were too effective. If they took her alive, they would eventually learn everything about human intelligence operations in this sector. As Thane reached for her wrists, Lisa made her decision. She would have to drop her cover and fight. It would ruin 3 years of careful preparation. But staying alive was more important than maintaining her disguise. But before she could move, something unexpected happened. The fuel pump next to her truck suddenly exploded in a shower of sparks and flames. The blast was not large enough to hurt anyone, but it created a perfect distraction. All 6 Zephyrians turned toward the explosion. Their attention was off Lisa for just a moment. That moment was all she needed. Lisa dove toward her truck, rolled under the chassis, and came up on the other side with her hidden plasma pistol. In her hand, the weapon had been concealed in a magnetic holster underneath the driver's seat, and she drew it with the smooth motion of someone who had done the same thing 1,000 times before. "Nobody move!" she shouted, pointing the gun at Korath. But even as she spoke, Lisa knew the situation was far from under control. She had one small weapon against 6 heavily armed aliens, and their hover bikes were still functional, even if their targeting systems were down. The real fight was just beginning. And Lisa Harper was about to find out if 3 years of playing Sandra Bullock had made her soft, or if she was still the deadly soldier she had always been. The moment Lisa pointed her weapon at Vex Korath, everything changed. The frightened truck driver was gone, replaced by something the Zephyrians had never expected to see. Lisa's stance was perfect, her grip on the plasma pistol steady and professional. Her eyes were no longer wide with fear, they were cold and calculating, like a predator choosing its first target. Korath stared at her in shock. "Impossible," he growled. "You were just a human freight hauler." "Wrong," Lisa said quietly. Her voice was completely different now, calm, controlled, and deadly. "I'm Captain Lisa Harper, Terran Defense Forces, Special Operations Division. And you just made the biggest mistake of your lives." The 3 Zephyrians who had been surrounding her suddenly realized they were in terrible danger. Thane, who had been reaching for his restraints, went for his plasma rifle instead. He was fast, but Lisa was faster. Her first shot caught him center mass, and his armor plating cracked like an eggshell. The powerful alien warrior fell backward and did not get up. Rozek tried to dive for cover behind one of the hoverbikes, but Lisa's second shot hit him before he made it halfway. The plasma bolt burned through his shoulder armor and spun him around. He crashed into his own bike and lay still, smoke rising from his wound. The 3rd Zephyrian, the one called Scarface, was smarter than his companions. Instead of going for his weapon, he threw himself flat on the ground and rolled behind Lisa's truck. "She is human special forces," he screamed to the others. "This is a trap." Korath was shouting orders in the Zephyrian language, but his remaining fighters were already moving. The 3 aliens on hoverbikes tried to bring their weapons to bear on Lisa, but their targeting systems were still malfunctioning. Their shots went wide, burning holes in the ground around the gas station. Lisa rolled behind one of the fuel pumps just as a plasma bolt sizzled past her head. The pump was made of reinforced metal that could stop most energy weapons, but it would not provide cover for long. She needed to keep moving and find better positions. That was when Jake Morrison finally revealed himself. The broken speeder that he had been pretending to repair suddenly came to life. But it was not a speeder at all. It was a military combat drone disguised to look like civilian equipment. The machine rose into the air on silent gravity engines and began firing precision shots at the hover-dash bikes at the same time. Jake stepped out from behind the service building with a military-grade assault rifle in his hands. Like Lisa, he moved with the smooth confidence of a trained soldier. His first burst of fire hit one of the hoverbikes directly in its fuel tank, causing it to explode in a ball of orange flame. "Sorry I'm late, partner," Jake called out to Lisa as he dove for cover behind a concrete barrier, to make sure all their communications were jammed first. The Zephyrian riders were now caught between Lisa's position near the fuel pumps and Jake's position behind the service building. Their formation was broken, and half their vehicles were destroyed or damaged. But they were still dangerous fighters. With superior strength and armor, Korath himself climbed onto his hover bike and lifted it into the air, trying to get above the crossfire. His bike was larger and better armed than the others, with twin plasma cannons and heavy shielding. Kill them both, he roared. These humans will pay for their deception. Lisa sprinted from her cover behind the fuel pump, firing as she ran. Her shots forced Korath to swerve his bike away from the gas station building, where Pete Williams and any other civilians might be hiding. She could not let the fight spread to innocent people. Jake's combat drone was proving devastatingly effective. Against the remaining hover bikes, the small machine was too fast and agile for the aliens to target, and its weapons were designed specifically to penetrate Sephorian armor. Another bike went down in flames as the drone's micromissiles found their mark. But the Zephorians were not giving up easily. Scarface had managed to circle around behind Lisa's truck and was now firing at her from a new angle. His shots were getting closer, and Lisa had to keep moving to avoid being hit. "Jake," she called out. "I need covering fire on my 6, got it," Jake replied. He switched to fully automatic fire and sprayed the area around Lisa's truck with plasma bolts. Scarface was forced to take cover, giving Lisa time to reach a better position behind the gas station's main building. The building itself was starting to reveal its secrets. What had looked like an ordinary gas station was actually much more than that. Armored panels slid up from the ground around the fuel pumps, creating defensive positions. Automated turrets emerged from hidden compartments in the roof and began tracking the remaining aliens. "Pete." Williams' voice came over hidden speakers throughout the gas station area. "This is Station Commander Williams to all Zephorian forces," he announced. "You are surrounded by Terran defense installations. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." The truth was now completely out in the open. Murphy's gas station was a front for human military intelligence operations. Pete Williams was not just a friendly station owner. He was a Terran commander running a spy network. The whole planet was not what it seemed. Korath realized that he and his gang had walked into a trap that had been years in the making. Retreat. He screamed to his surviving fighters, "Get to the ships. Call for backup." But Jake's jamming equipment was already blocking all their communications. The Zephorians could not call for help, and their escape routes were being cut off by the automated defenses that were appearing all around the gas station. Lisa stepped out from her cover with her weapon trained on Korath's hoverbike. "Hey, this is your last chance," she called out. "Land your bike and surrender? We can do this the easy way or the hard way." Korath's response was to fire both of his plasma cannons directly at her. Lisa dove aside as the ground where she had been standing turned to molten glass. The alien leader was not going to surrender, which meant the fight would continue until one side was completely defeated. Jake moved to a new position and began setting up a heavy weapon that he had pulled from a hidden cache behind the service. "Building, Lisa. Keep him busy for 30 seconds, he shouted. "I'm going to end this." Lisa grinned fiercely as she rolled back into firing position. After 3 years of pretending to be helpless, it felt good to be herself again. The Zephorians were about to learn why humans had earned their fearsome reputation across the galaxy. Lisa kept moving and firing, drawing Korath's attention away from Jake. The alien leader was getting frustrated because his powerful hoverbike could not seem to hit the small human who kept dodging his shots. Every time he lined up a perfect shot, Lisa would roll or jump to a new position at the last second. What Korath did not understand was that Lisa and Jake had been fighting together for so long that they could predict each other's movements perfectly. When Lisa dove left, Jake was already moving to cover her right flank. When Jake called out a warning, Lisa was already moving before the words finished leaving his mouth. This kind of teamwork was something aliens rarely saw. Most alien species fought as individuals, even when they were part of a group. Each Zephorian was trying to win his own personal battle, but Lisa and Jake were fighting as a single unit with 2 bodies, and it made them far more dangerous than the sum of their parts. Scarface tried to sneak around the side of the gas station building to get behind Jake's position. But Lisa had been watching him through the reflection in a broken window, and she was ready for his move. As soon as he stepped into the open, she put 2 plasma bolts through his chest armor. The big alien crashed to the ground and did not move. Again, that's 3 down. Lisa called out to Jake as she rolled behind a concrete barrier. "Working on number 4, Jake replied. The heavy weapon he was setting up was a portable railgun that could punch through almost any armor. The weapon was designed to take down alien spacecraft, but it would work just fine on a hoverbike. One of the surviving Zephyrian riders made the mistake of flying his bike too close to Jake's combat drone. The small machine had been programmed with combat patterns from 100 different battles, and it knew exactly how to exploit the weaknesses in Zephyrian technology. The drone attached itself to the hoverbike's underside and detonated its internal explosives. Both the drone and the bike disappeared in a bright flash. Korath was now down to just one surviving gang member, but he was not ready to give up. Instead, he was getting more desperate and dangerous. His hoverbike swooped low over the gas station, and he began firing at everything in sight. Fuel pumps exploded in showers of flame. Windows shattered. The concrete barriers that Lisa was using for cover began to crack and crumble. "He's going crazy," Lisa shouted to Jake. "We need to end this before he brings down the whole station." Jake had finished setting up his railgun, but he needed a clear shot. Korath's bike was moving too fast and changing direction too often. "Can you get him to hold still for 3 seconds?" Jake asked. Lisa looked around the battlefield and noticed something that gave her an idea. One of the fuel pumps that Korath had destroyed was still leaking fuel across the ground. The liquid was spreading in a wide pool that reflected the late afternoon sunlight. "I've got a plan," Lisa called back. "When I give you the signal, take your shot." Lisa stepped out from behind her cover and began running straight toward the fuel spill. Korath saw her immediately and turned his bike to follow her, firing his plasma cannons as fast as they would charge. The alien was so focused on killing the human who had ruined his plans that he did not notice what she was leading him toward. Lisa reached the edge of the fuel spill and suddenly stopped running. Instead, she dropped flat on her stomach and rolled to the side. Korath's bike was moving too fast to change course, and he flew directly over the pool of spilled fuel. "Now!" Lisa screamed. Jake fired his railgun. The metal projectile moved so fast that it was just a blur in the air. It hit Korath's hoverbike in the engine compartment and tore completely through it. The bike's power core exploded and burning. Wreckage crashed down into the fuel spill. The fuel ignited instantly, creating a wall of fire 20 feet high. Korath was thrown clear of his destroyed bike, but his armor was cracked and smoking. He landed hard on the concrete and struggled to get back to his feet. The last surviving gang member tried to escape on his hoverbike, but the automated turrets that had emerged from the gas station building tracked him perfectly. Multiple energy beams hit his bike at the same time, and it disintegrated in midair. The rider fell to the ground and did not get up. Lisa walked slowly toward Korath, her plasma pistol pointed at his head. The alien leader was badly injured, and his metallic skin was blackened from the explosion. But he was still alive and still dangerous. "It's over," Lisa told him. "Your gang is dead, your bikes are destroyed, and help is not coming. Surrender now, and you might live long enough to see the inside of a prison cell." Korath looked up at her with hatred burning in his reptilian eyes. "You think you have one," he hissed. "But there are dozens of gangs like mine, hundreds of ships, thousands of warriors. Humans will never be safe from us." Jake walked over to join Lisa, his assault rifle ready in case Korath tried anything. "Stupid. That's where you're wrong," he said calmly. "What happened here today is going to be broadcast across every criminal network in the galaxy. Every alien pirate and gang leader is going to see exactly what happens when they mess with humans." Pete Williams emerged from the gas station building with a recording device in his hands, already uploading the security footage to the Galactic Information Networks, he announced. High-definition video from 6 different angles showing the humans defeating an entire Zephyrian assault squad. Lisa smiled grimly. "The message will be very clear. Any alien who threatens human civilians or attacks human settlements can expect to meet soldiers like us. And we are everywhere." Korath tried to reach for a hidden weapon, but Lisa was faster. Her plasma bolt hit his hand and destroyed the small pistol he had been trying to draw. The alien leader fell back to the ground, defeated and helpless. "The thing about humans," Jake said as he activated restraints around Korath's arms and legs, "is that we look harmless until we don't. By the time you realize what you're really fighting, it's already too late." Lisa looked around at the burning wreckage of hoverbikes, and the bodies of alien criminals scattered across the gas station. 3 years of careful planning and patient waiting had led to this moment. The Zephyrian gang that had been terrorizing human settlements was finished, and word of their defeat would spread fear through every criminal organization in this part of the galaxy. But more importantly, they had sent a message that would be remembered for years to come. Humans might look weak and primitive, but appearances could be very deceiving. Any alien who forgot that lesson would end up like Vex Korath, and his gang defeated, captured, and used as an example for others. 6 hours after the battle at Murphy's gas station, security footage was being watched in criminal hideouts across 3 star systems. The video showed everything in perfect detail, 2 ordinary-looking humans revealing themselves as deadly warriors and destroying an entire Zephyrian assault squad in less than 10 minutes. On the pirate ship Crimson Fang, Captain Zach's Morrill paused the video at the moment when Lisa Harper first drew her weapon. "Look at her stance," he told his crew of alien criminals. "Perfect military training. This female has killed before, many times." Second in command, a scarred creature called Vex the Bitter, shook his head in disbelief. "Were we supposed to know? She looked like any other human freight hauler. They all look weak and helpless." "That is exactly the point," Morrill replied. "We can never again assume that any human is what they appear to be. Cancel all operations in human space. We are not equipped to fight an enemy that could be anyone." Similar conversations were happening on dozens of ships throughout the sector. The video had been uploaded to every major criminal network. Copies were spreading faster than the authorities could track them. Within 12 hours, it would reach alien crime bosses in systems hundreds of light years away. Back on New Kansas, Lisa and Jake were cleaning their weapons in the hidden armory beneath Murphy's gas station. The station's basement was filled with military equipment that could outfit a small army: weapons, communication gear, surveillance devices, and medical supplies. Everything needed to run intelligence operations on a frontier world. "Think they'll send more gangs after us?" Jake asked as he reassembled his assault rifle. Lisa shrugged. "Maybe, but not for a while. Word will spread that this planet is protected by special forces. Most criminals will look for easier targets." Pete Williams came down the stairs carrying a steaming cup of coffee and a datapad full of reports. "Footage is already having an effect," he announced. 3 different pirate groups have changed course away from human shipping lanes. 2 more have sent messages saying they want to negotiate peaceful agreements. "What about our traitor?" Lisa asked. "Did Korath give us any useful information before he died?" Korath had not survived his injuries from the hoverbike explosion. He had died in the medical facility 2 hours after the battle, but not before revealing some important details about his operation. The Zephyrian gang had indeed been receiving inside information from someone in the human colonial government. "We have a name," Pete said, checking his datapad. "Marcus Webb, Deputy Administrator for the Colonial Defense Coordination Office. He's been selling shipping schedules and patrol routes to alien criminals for the past 8 months." Jake looked up from his weapon. "Where is he now?" "In custody on the Capital World," Pete replied. "Terran intelligence arrested him this morning. They found enough evidence in his personal files to convict him of treason 3 times over." Lisa felt a surge of satisfaction. The mission that had started 3 years ago was finally complete. They had identified the traitor, destroyed the most dangerous criminal gang in the sector, and sent a message that would protect human settlements for years to come. But she also knew that their work on New Kansas was far from over. There would be other criminals, other threats, and other missions. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and humanity needed defenders who could hide in plain sight until the moment they were needed. "What are our new orders?" Jake asked. Pete smiled. "You good? To keep your cover identities for now. Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves are becoming famous in their own right. Half the truckers in the sector are asking for autographs." This was true. The security footage had made Lisa and Jake into folk heroes among the human civilian population. Freight haulers and mechanics were suddenly getting a lot more respect from alien customers, who had seen what ordinary-looking humans could really do. On the trading station at Proxima Point, An alien merchant named Thresh was negotiating a deal with a human cargo hauler named Bill Davis. 3 days ago, Thresh would have tried to cheat the human and intimidate him into accepting unfair terms. Today he was being extremely polite and offering generous payment schedules. "Excellent doing business with you, friend Bill," Thresh said, using the formal address that aliens reserved for equals. "Please let me know if there is anything else my humble establishment can provide for such an esteemed human trader." Was confused by the sudden change in attitude, but he was not complaining. "Thanks, I guess. Same time next month? Of course, we'll have your usual cargo ready and waiting. No delays, no problems, I promise."
After
Bill left, Thresh's assistant asked why he was being so generous with the human trader. Thresh pulled up the security footage from Murphy's gas station on his personal communicator. "Watch this," he said. "2 humans destroy 6 Zephyrion warriors in minutes. Now tell me, how do we know that Bill Davis is not also a trained killer? Pretending to be a simple cargo hauler?" The assistant watched the video with growing alarm. "We do not know," he admitted. "Exactly," Thresh said. "So we treat all humans with respect, because any one of them might be Sandra Bullock or Keanu Reeves in disguise." This new attitude was spreading throughout the alien business community. Human traders were suddenly finding that their negotiations went much more smoothly. Prices were fairer, contracts were more generous, and disputes were settled quickly and quietly. The psychological effect was exactly what Terran intelligence had hoped for. By showing that humans could be far more dangerous than they appeared, the security footage had changed the entire balance of power on the frontier. Aliens who might have considered attacking human settlements now had to wonder if those settlements were defended by ordinary colonists or by elite soldiers in disguise. Lisa and Jake continued their work as freight hauler and mechanic. But now, their presence served a different purpose. Instead of gathering intelligence in secret, they were acting as a visible deterrent to criminal activity. Every alien in the sector knew their faces, and most were smart enough to stay far away from any place where Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves might be working. 6 months later, crime rates in human space had dropped by 60%. Alien gangs were avoiding human targets entirely, preferring to prey on each other rather than risk encountering more disguised human operatives. Murphy's gas station became a tourist destination for young humans who wanted to join the Terran Defense Forces. They would stand in the exact spot where Lisa had made her first shot and imagine themselves following in her footsteps. Pete Williams hung a framed copy of the security footage behind the counter, with a simple caption, "Don't judge a book by its cover." For aliens who visited the station, the message was clear. Any human could be a warrior in disguise. For humans, it was a reminder that sometimes the most ordinary-looking people were actually the most extraordinary. And somewhere in the galaxy, on worlds that had not yet heard the story of Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves, new threats were emerging that would require new heroes. But that was a story for another day.